The Certainty Principle, Chapter 2, The Physics of Certainty by David Light. I am David Light. Pascal's Wager. Pascal's Wager you can actually look up. It's a well-documented treatise that was written by Blaise Pascal, famous mathematician of the 17th century, often thought of, referred to as the father of logic, at least mathematical logic. The guiltless galaxy spins on in concert majesty, until at some appointed time each note of it resigns, to recompose in rhapsodies even more sublime. Why then should it be much different for me? For am I not the stuff from which the stars are made? As a logician, I came to believe the inevitable uncertainty of man's grasp on the natural order of things. That is, until that fateful event recounted here, from which I expect never to recover my former despair of uncertainty. Soon after midnight, on the morning of Monday, 24th November, 1654, I was driving my two in hand, returning our usual route from Neuilly to Paris by way of the Esplanade. Though I was dressed for a more chilling return than my morning trip, I had loosened my neck scarf and removed my gloves. An unusually clement rain had moved through during the evening, warming and softening the cool air and washing the roadway slick. Late and exhausted, I pressed the team for home. I was as weary and eager to get to my apartments in Saint-Germain-des-Prés as Virgil, my team lead, to return to his stable. Approaching the river, the dewy aired but otherwise refreshing drive suddenly thickened into a fog flowing up the banks and blanketing the road before us. The moonlight on which I relied to see vanished so quickly I was momentarily blind. But in my fatigue, I failed to slow the team, so confident was I that Virgil's command of the course and our speed exceeded the thin visibility. At once the team turned right, surging up the bridge ramp. Gloveless, the slick reins slipped free from my hand, and the team, heaving against the ramp, sent me backwards out of the seat as the wheels of the carriage skidded away across the wet stone. Though the events I am about to relate certainly transpired within no more than several seconds of time, I should note that the experience was protracted, as if time itself had slowed to a point that I was observing a sequence of individual frames unfolding as paging through a child's picture book. Mounting the first arch section, 20 or 30 meters over the river, fear overwhelmed me as I grappled in the darkness at my feet for the reins. Just as I was rising back in my seat, fumbling to order the straps, Virgil lunged violently right, heading the team directly at the balustrade in the murk. In the next frame, the brace reared up against the bridge wall, spinning the carriage sideways. I could see with perfect clarity sparks rising slowly, soft lightning from his clad hooves, now dug deeply into the Belgian blockwork. Sailing past my face like snowflakes drifting and suspended, small chips of light showered up as the beasts struggled to halt their massive momentum. Uncanny is the only word that captures the fine detail of the unfolding in this terrible instant. Looking left, there emerged from the fog an overturned peat wagon, blocking the roadway and diverting the team. The driver was standing before it, waving his arms, and in this instant I could clearly see his right hand bore a fresh wound, the torn flesh exposing a fragment of bone where his thumb once was. Again, I could inspect it in vivid detail from my seat suspended in this protraction. When confronting the wall, the poor beast, more confused even than myself, reared up and leapt over it, oblivious that nothing but the river awaited them some 10 fathoms below. The front wheels of the carriage leapt with them, and in this mortal moment it seemed that the velocity of the event had slowed to an arrêt de jeu. That means in French a pause or a stop. The lifting sensation terrified me, signaling the worst, that the entire rig, myself aboard, was vaulting into the abyss and a certain dreadful end. Yet in that same instant, a powerful excitation surged through my body from the bones out. Dazzling and disoriented, I was seized by a terrible ecstasy. A sublime and strangely soothing sensation infused me, erasing the abject fear that had preceded it. Since the accident, this sensation has periodically returned, and with even greater intensity, and that only adds to my confidence that the thought that accompanied it carried some primordial importance. It was the absence of all fear, a consuming force of calm and confidence, leaving in its wake an infusion of quietude and comfort like nothing I had formerly experienced. My perspective transformed to that of a bystander, perfectly calm and detached from the events flickering past me. I had no investment in the outcome of the events. I watched as the horses' hooves, one by one, scraped over the marble capstone of the balustrade, disappearing sadly into the dark. Next, the front wheels patiently splintering on the stonework as if under some fantastic weight that was ever so steadily and deliberately crushing them. I could see in amazing detail the destruction of it all. As the momentum lifted the carriage, the reins yanked free, with the horses fallen, I could now peer over and just make out the trace which had broken away from the rigging and was tumbling in slow chaos towards the river. Poor Virgil, I thought. It was at this instant, with the rear of the carriage rotating upwards and the resignation that I was done for, that my insight occurred. As one who has spent months deliberating even the simplest mathematical problems, I am still bewildered that such a fantastic and comprehensive understanding of mine could be delivered whole and complete in a lightning flash. It was simply this: if God does not exist, one will lose nothing by believing in him. While if he does exist, one will lose everything by not believing. Blaise Pascal, Pensis, 1670. This insight I have since translated into various implications, both scientific and philosophical. But at the instant, it occurred to me as an ineffable understanding of the incredibly remote yet distinct probability that my own immortality, which I have reformulated as the following general rule of natural law. Quote, "It is not certain that all is uncertain." Unquote. Blaise Pascal, Treatise on Air Pressure, 1653. As in the Pascal's wager story, things changed for me after uncovering the forever horizons principle. A little serious contemplation suggested that the consequences of my actions are permanently recorded in each instant seemed obvious enough. The probability, however remote, that my actions have indelible consequences was sobering, even frightening, which is why, I imagine, so many have rebutted Pascal's wager so passionately. Pascal was the rock star mathematician of his day. His observations on the nature of certainty led to probability theory, which has influenced the course of mathematics and science for nearly 4 centuries. Fundamentally, Pascal's proposition that even the remote possibility that there is no avoidance of individual and perpetual accountability challenges each to make the certainty choice of a lifetime. Conservation and chaos. The science of comparative methods sheds some light on the validity of Pascal's wager. Consider that the physics making up my physical self never escape reality because my body is literally the stuff from which reality is built. Each atom of me recycles into the macrocosm. What I am built of has been reformed infinite times through countless millennia from halfway across the galaxy. The transformations from form to form are constrained by the laws of chemistry and physics, deterministically. A time-lapse radiologic video map of a decomposing corpse provides conclusive, if somewhat revolting, evidence of this remarkable process. If I am atomically perpetual, then what about the perpetuation of my actions? Do my choices map permanently into the big picture, like the atoms that make up my body? In the context of cause and effect, the answer is undeniably yes. Regardless of the religious implications of Pascal's dilemma, the conclusion is regularly and secularly the same. Just as there is no escape from the physics of my physical being, my actions affect everything forever. So if the laws of physics determine the course of a body's chemistry, what are the laws by which my choices are made? And does the ignorance of those laws disadvantage me? Yes, again. Mathematician Edward Lorentz's chaos theory, also known as the butterfly effect, Lorentz, 1972, eloquently describes the calculus of this extraordinary relationship. Quote, slightly differing initial states will evolve into considerably differing states. If the flap of a butterfly's wings can be instrumental in generating a tornado, it can equally well be instrumental in preventing the tornado. Unquote. TCP recognizes that just as the elements comprising my body will go on recomposing in the real world forever after me, so each of my actions are integrated into every subsequent instant, forever. To paraphrase Lincoln, I will never escape history.